This presentation covers how to answer a question 3 on the Pearson Edexcel iGCSE English Language B paper. Question 3 that we're going to look at is explain how the writer persuades the reader that it's important to read. You should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including brief quotations. And the text is Why Our Future Depends on Libraries, Reading and Daydreaming, adapted from a lecture given in London by the author Neil Gaiman. Now you can find this on the January 2019 paper, which is available with all the other past papers on the Pearson website. When answering this question, I'd like you to think of the mnemonic palace, like a fairy tale palace but misspelled. It will remind you to consider the following: purpose, audience, language, atmosphere or tone and mood, and structure. Firstly, let's look at purpose. Although this is a how question, not a what question, you will have to briefly mention what the text is about in your topic sentences before you go on to the all-important language devices and their effect. Let's briefly consider the three big ideas of this text. The text has obviously been written to celebrate reading and show how important it is for children to engage with it. It's written by an author, of course. You could say he's biased or that he knows what he's talking about, or both. It advises that adults should not be prescriptive about what children read. They should let children read for enjoyment. It tells us that reading is beneficial in all sorts of ways, including in developing empathy and intelligence. So clearly it's a text promoting the value of reading, and these 3 points will help you form your topic sentences, keep your focus on the title, and guide your focus on language so that you're not simply listing language devices. Secondly, audience. It's worth considering who the text is aimed at. The text is a transcript from a lecture given by an author to support a charity, the Reading Agency. We can assume that it's targeting parents or donors. If you remember that this is a lecture, you'll be able to say interesting things about tone and also notice that particularly on the second page, there's a lot of direct address. Thirdly, language. Samuel Johnson said, language is the dress of thought. Neil Gaiman, the writer, has chosen to convey his big ideas through particular word choices, which may have several connotations. A close consideration of language is crucial for question 3, because the author has used all sorts of devices to create particular effects and thereby convey his message. Consider, for example, the level of formality of the piece, whether it's in the first or third person, I or he, she, the lexical sets or semantic fields, groups of words which will have certain associations. Look also at contrast or juxtaposition and different word classes. You may notice a key verb, noun or adverb, etc. Look at dialogue, quotations. An expert, for example, might be cited to add authority to the writing. The use of statistics, figurative language, i.e. simile, metaphor, hyperbole, or phonology, sounds. Rhetorical questions, a question that's designed simply to make a point and doesn't expect an answer. Or anecdotes, little personal stories to engage us or illustrate a point, etc., etc. Number 4, atmosphere, mood or tone. This could really come under language, but I'll outline it here too because it is crucial to consider what sort of mood is being created. Is there a positive or negative tone? Remember that the tone may change during the passage. For example, there may be moments of humour or gravity. Consider also structure. This is basically what is said about the topic, in this case reading, and in what order. So consider sentence types, sentence structure, paragraph lengths. For example, there may be a one-sentence paragraph for a particular reason. Consider the use of connectives, types of speech, punctuation, repetition, headings and subheadings, and the use of italics or bold font. So, if you haven't already, go to the Pearson website and search for the January 2019 past paper. Have a read and you may begin to notice some interesting things about language and structure. Here's the mark scheme. Look particularly at level 4 and level 5, and then you can mark the next slide. So once you've had a look at the passage and reread question 3, consider what you think of this student example. I'll read it for you now. Gaiman's lecture persuades the reader that it is vitally important to read for enjoyment by presenting his ideas in the first person. I'm going to suggest that reading fiction is one of the most important things one can do. He offers an honest and impassioned viewpoint using the superlative most to indicate that reading is a priority. The author acknowledges that he is biased as both a professional writer and a reader, and uses the adverbs obviously and enormously for emphasis. This makes his views sound credible, and indeed his words carry authority because of his profession. Even the title emphasizes how crucial reading and the imagination are, linking them through the use of the triplet, libraries, reading, and daydreaming, which are presented as essential to our future. The collective pronoun our invites us all to take his message seriously. The author outlines the great pleasure that can be derived from reading by using listing in a long, complex sentence. This shows the way in which a book can compulsively carry you along. Firstly, the drive to know what happens next, to want to turn the page. Here, the sentence length mimics the reader not wanting to stop, illustrating how he can get carried along by a plot. Gaiman also presents reading as essential to human relationships in a forceful, alliterative sentence, outlining that we need reading to communicate and comprehend. If we don't have these basic skills required for reading, then we cannot exchange ideas, cannot communicate. The repetition of the negative modal auxiliary verb cannot evokes a sense of inability or limitation, therefore persuading the audience that reading is part of living a full and thoughtful life. In addition, in the short penultimate paragraph, the verb need is repeated twice in one sentence to emphasize reading as an essential practice. Furthermore, the writer persuades us that reading is crucial for developing empathy, using a list to indicate that reading allows a better understanding of others as you get to feel things, visit other places and worlds in a book. Again, the use of listing implies that reading extends our experience of the world. Increasingly, the writer uses direct address to persuade us that this argument is relevant to us, you, and you alone. In addition, the writer sounds enthusiastic by using non-standard sentence structures beginning with the conjunction and, such as, and the second thing fiction does. This reinforces the informal tone and creates a sense of eagerness and enthusiasm. Similarly, he explains what it is good for, using a colloquial tone which reminds us that this extract is taken from a speech outlining the numerous benefits of reading. Finally, the writer cites Einstein, a famous scientist and genius, who felt reading fiction for pleasure, fairy tales, enormously benefited children's intelligence. This quotation adds weight to the writer's argument that reading is important. And finally, there are a few things to avoid. Although you can suggest your ideas tentatively, this might suggest that, or this may evoke a sense of, try not to waffle, particularly when you're writing about effect. So avoid things like, this makes us want to read on, this immerses us in the text, this really grabs the reader, or any kind of value judgment such as the author does as well. Try and be really specific about effect. Thank you very much for listening, and please do take a moment to give this video a thumbs up.